Hi and welcome back to the Shipwrecked Sheep channel. My name is Shelby and I am here today with episode 3 of the Knitting and Yarn Crafting podcast. This is the episode for Saturday, November 15th. I am recording on November 13th, so this episode covers all of my yarn craft making from October 30th to November 13th. I have just a few small things to show you in this week's podcast. I have not worked on any larger projects, so if there's something from a previous episode that you remember seeing me make, but it's not here today in my current projects or my finished projects, it's just because I have not worked on it in the last 2 weeks of making. But I do have quite a few finished items to show you. They're just small items. I have some upcoming project updates as well as a few acquisitions, which I hinted towards last time. So let's go ahead and just get started and get into it. I have one current project that I have been working on that I did not finish over this past week. And so let's go ahead and start with that one. This one does tie in a little bit to acquisitions, so you're getting a small sneak peek of the acquisitions early by seeing this project. This is the Gushy Garter hat by Park Williams. It is a bulky weight hat that calls for Spincycle yarns in the Plump base, which is what I am using. It takes about 2 skeins for each of the sizes, depending on the size you make and whether or not you choose to make a palm for the top out of the yarn. Anyway, so that's the Gushy Garter hat by Park Williams. It uses 6.5 millimeter needles in a 16 or 20 inch circular. I use a 16 inch circular. That is a US 10.5 needle, and I'm just using my Chiaogu short interchangeable tips. This is a garter stitch in the round hat, so generally speaking, you're knitting and purling on alternate rounds. There is a little bit of a slipped stitch detail. Let's see if I can show that to you. So the brim on this hat actually does fold up, so you can't really see the slipped stitch detail on the bottom 3 inches very well. So let me just fold that up so that you can see that will be on the outside. And then after about 3 inches, the slip stitch and pattern changes a little bit so that this detail does kind of carry up the rest of the hat. So it is just I don't want to call it simple, because it is a kind of simple structure to it, but it is very, I don't know, intuitively designed. I really like Park's designs. I have made one other of Park's accessory designs several years ago. I test knit the, like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to remember what it's called, but it's like a ruffled collar that is made completely out of mohair. And I made that for one of my kids. They wore it with dresses and it was really cute until it got put in somebody's laundry. And I don't know if you know this, but mohair felts. So I don't know if I'll make another one, but I have liked Park's patterns and I have purchased quite a few of them over the years, but I have not made a lot of them. So I am making this out of the Spincycle yarns Plump in the colorway Vibe Check. And I did purchase 2 of these skeins last weekend. I think that's right. So this is the Vibe Check colorway. It is really very fun and colorful. Lots of beautiful fuchsia, purple, and varying shades of kind of greens and teals. It's so pretty. And some yellow. It's really pretty. I really like the colorway. And I am making this hat for my hat make along that I'm hosting, and I will get way into more of the details for how to participate in that hat make along at the end of the video. but I just want to mention it now that I am hosting a hat make along. So I'm doing this for our hat make along here with Shipwrecked Sheep, as well as the Spincycle Yarns Plump along, which is a make along for you to specifically use this yarn base, but there are no restrictions on the types of projects you can make with it. It just has to use, I think each project that you submit for it has to use at least 50% of this yarn. This hat will use all of this yarn, unless I decide to make a palm out of a different yarn, but that's irrelevant. So I am just using this and really loving it. And I don't know if I will make any additional projects for the Plump along, because if I do, I would have to buy more Plump yarn, because this project is going to take both of these skeins, or nearly all of both of these, and I only have the two. So that's my first project, and I'm making this in the medium size. It does come in 3 sizes. I think it's, oh, how does she write it out? I think they're child/youth size, and then like a adult small medium, an adult large extra large, or something like that. I am making the medium size, the adult medium. So there is that. That is the only thing that I'm currently actively working on. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next category, which is finished projects. And I have several of those to show you. And I kind of went back and forth between these. So one is kind of a set and the other is kind of a set. And within those sets, there are 3 items each. So let me go ahead and start with the one that I am the most excited about. So I did show this to you 2 weeks ago in the last episode. This is the Rail Bear bonnet by Pernille Larsen. This is a baby bonnet that is knit mostly in garter stitch. There is a little bit of ribbing detail here and the garter stitch straps. There are some, it's not really short rows. It's like a series of increases and decreases. And so right here on the ears, these ears from here to the tips of the ears are seamed because after you do a series of increases and decreases, you then bind off those stitches, and then those bound off stitches become seamed. And then here, from here to here, from here to here, that is also seamed. And so those stitches are bound off as you work. And, but this sort of seam line here, can you see that right there? That is not actually a seam, that is just a series of decreases. So it's very intuitively written. It's extremely easy. There's no short rows. There is only a couple of very short seams. For the straps, you essentially cast on some number of stitches and then pick up these stitches and then cast on some number more and then you work back and forth. So it's extremely easy. I don't think I gave too much of the pattern away with that because again, although it is extremely intuitive, it's extremely well written pattern. I don't think I could have done this without it. I made the size of 6 months. It used, for me, 30 grams of sport weight yarn, or 94 yards. I don't have the leftovers of the yarn, but I do think I have the tag for it. So I made it from Graphic Dye Works Semi-Bold Sport in the Divination colorway. I made this on 3.5 millimeter or size US 4 needles, and I showed you last week that I did make a swatch. And this is knit flat, and so is my swatch, and I got gauged correctly on my swatch. However, I am very concerned that this will not fit my 4.5-month-old niece. I'm just really hoping at this point that it will. I am going to go ahead and get this sent off very soon so that they have it for her, and hopefully it fits. If it does not fit her, I have enough yarn that I can just tell my brother, like, hey, if it doesn't fit her, please send it back and I will make a different one in a bigger size. In fact, I think I can probably make a second one in a bigger size without using the yarn from this one. So maybe I'll try that, but it's not that I don't really want to make a second one out of this same yarn, is I guess what I want to say about that. I did love this. I do think I'll make another one in the future. I think it's a great baby gift knit. I don't necessarily want to make another one out of this yarn because I feel like that would feel like too repetitive, especially since I've already made a bunch of other baby knits with this yarn. So let me go ahead and show you the little set that I put together for my niece. So it includes this rail bear bonnet, and then I found this pattern which also features a lot of garter stitch, and so I thought it would go well. It's called the Mini Jord Mittens by Maria Carlander. And so there's the baby mittens. It uses a garter stitch cuff and then I think like a mistake rib style hand, and then the little mistake rib kind of goes up the thumb, but the rest of the thumb is just stockinette. And I just thought that these would go so nicely together. So I made the first size, the size 1, which is meant to fit a 1 to 2 year old, and I used 2.75 millimeter needles and that's a US 2. And I made these knowing that they're probably too big for her, but these were the smallest size that I could find for mittens that included thumbs. And because she's 4, almost 5 months old, I feel like we're just getting into that phase where she will want to be having more dexterity of her thumbs so that she can pinch and grab things. And so, I don't know, I just wanted to make the mittens with thumbs, but then I also decided to make baby mittens. So these have no thumbs. They are a little small. I am concerned that they will be too small for her, but if they don't use them, it's okay. So the third item is the baby mittens pattern by Kaitlyn, Falk, Wong. This is a one size pattern. It is like a blog post style pattern that's actually on the web archive link when you find it. So the actual blog is no longer active, but the web archive still holds the pattern. And so it's a one size pattern. It calls for 3.25 millimeter needles, and that is a US 3 size. So the whole set includes thumbed mittens for maybe when she might not be able to use these right away. She might have to wait till she's a little tiny bit older. But also in theory, they'll fit her next year perfectly if they don't fit her this year. Like, that's my hope, is that they can use them next year. And then these little mittens. And next year, I think that what I would probably end up doing, and I don't want to promise myself a specific project to do a whole year from now, but likely I would just make a different hat to go with those mittens next year, and it wouldn't have to be the same yarn, but maybe I will save a little bit of it to do like edging or accents. So a hat, baby mittens, bigger baby mittens. And so that whole set, and that used up about 70 grams of the 100 gram skein of yarn. So I still, maybe not 70, 65, I think, grams. And I believe I have 35 grams left, something to that effect. So that is finished projects 1, 2, and 3. And so those, now that I've shown you, I'm going to, as quickly as I can, take finished object photos to put onto my Ravelry project pages and get those sent out probably today. The final project that I made is another set of 3, but I'm counting this as one project. I have been making these, you might remember last time, these yarn cozies that go on full skeins or full-size cakes of yarn for holding your yarn as you work center pull. That is a pattern by Knitty Natty, and this one specifically is the full-size yarn cozy. I bought the mini size yarn cozy pattern, which includes the pattern directions for making a 50-gram cake size, so it'll hold a 50-gram cake, and a 20-gram cake size, so it'll hold a mini skein. So I made this set, and these are all the 50-gram cake size. I had a good time making these because I had 30 grams left over from a pair of socks that I knit somewhere between 7 to 10 years ago. It was the String Theory Colorworks Inertia base. I didn't write the colorway. I don't remember the colorway. Sorry. And I had previously knit a pair of Fruit Stripe Gum socks by Leah Oakley. And so the yarn that I had left was approximately or almost exactly 30 grams. And so when I started these, I made this one first. And then I decided to make 2 of them so that I would be able to just have a set of 2 of the 50-gram size. And so, let's see, in the pattern of the stripes, so this one came next. So I made this one next. And when I made this one, when you're using self-striping, you want to, as much as possible, start your I-cord edging at the beginning of a color change. And so because and you might be able to tell that the gray stripe here is shorter, that's because I was not right at the beginning of the color change. I had a little bit left. And so I actually just did my own color change. I pulled out the strand of gray yarn until I got to the white, and I changed the color, and then I had a long strand of gray yarn, basically. And so I did this one first, then this one. This one I had just happened to pretty much be right at the color change, and so I had enough left to where that blue also showed up at the bottom or the start of the next one. So I'm gonna put the first one down. So then when I finished this one and I weighed out my remainder yarn, it was just barely enough to make one more, and I thought, I don't really have a good use to keep self-striping yarn. Mini leftovers, 10 grams of them, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for me. I don't have a use for them. And this was a good use for them, really. So when I finished this one, I went ahead and decided to make another one. So I used that little scrap bit of the gray that I had cut between these 2 colors here to start the third one. And then it went into the white, which is the next color in the sequence, because I had that white left over after I finished. That was the next color on the ball after I finished this white I-cord. And then I just worked the rest of the ball until I got to here, and as you can tell, the color change happens before the I-cord, just because these didn't have full repeats of the color on them. And so the color change happens before the I-cord, and that's no big deal. But then I got to, let's see, where's the knot? I hid the knot pretty well, I think. I think it's right here. So this is the beginning or end of this here. Let me turn that. This here is the beginning, and the end of the round is right here. And I got to here, right here, and I ran out of yarn. However, I did have kind of a tail on this one from where I started it. So I fastened that tail, I knotted it to the end of this blue, and I kept working. And then when I finished the I-cord, it was just enough to do the last like inch of the I-cord, the last inch here. And then when I finished the I-cord, I had this much of a tail, like an inch. I worked really all the way up to the last inch, which is not enough for me to graft the beginning and end of the I-cord together or weave in the end. So I then took a random blue scrap from my little scrap jar, and so it was probably like this long, enough for a tail and for grafting the ends. I took that and tied it to the end of this, and I grafted it, but I kind of tied the knot loosely. And so I grafted the end of the I-cord, and it used up all of that last, like, what I had left was like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches of this color from the tail that I had tied on from there. And so it used up, and there was just like the tiniest amount left, like 1/2 inch left still of this color, but it was loosely knotted to the other blue color that I had grabbed, which was a different blue. And then, so I very carefully wove in the end and undid the knot from the little tiny not the same color blue. And yeah, so I used up literally every last scrap, yarn chicken to the max, and got 3 little yarn cozies that will hold 50-gram cakes of yarn from the mini yarn cozy knit pattern by Knitting Natty. So all of that was a lot of drama, but also a lot of fun. 2 of them kind of match almost exactly in terms of like the stripe sequencing, but not totally exactly because of the different locations of where the stripes start. And then this one is kind of opposite because it does not start on the same stripe sequence. But that's okay. I had so much fun making these, and I think I'm done making yarn cozies for a little while. I think I made 3 of the full-size yarn cozies, and now that I've made 3 of the 50-gram size yarn cozies, I think I'm done making yarn cozies, because unless I had a specific need for a specific, like if I needed to make the size to hold a 20-gram mini skein, then I might make one of those. But at this point, I have enough of these yarn cozies to fulfill my needs for the current time period. And so maybe I would make some as a gift for somebody else, but I've made so many of them now. I've made 6 of them in the last month that I feel like I'm good on these. I had a blast making them. It's a great pattern. I know that I will make some more in the future, but if you see more of these on the episode 2 weeks from now, something has gone totally wrong. Because I really don't, at this time, do not want to make more of these. And I love the pattern, but I'm good for now. So that wraps up the finished projects from the last 2 weeks. Let's move on to upcoming projects. So for the last 2 podcasts, we have discussed my next cast on, which is going to be a cardigan cast on. And last week we had narrowed down to 3 different patterns with 2 different yarn choices. And so we didn't get as much participation in the selecting a pattern and a color in the comments of last week's episode. And I'm not ready to cast this on just yet. But at this time, I think we have settled on the Traveler's Cardigan by Ozetta, or Haley Smedley, out of the Pickles yarn in the Comfort Aran base, which is an 80% merino and 20% alpaca. This is a Shipwrecked sheep yarn. And I think that this was only a one-off colorway as well. I don't ever remember dyeing Pickles on a different base. If I did, it was maybe a short run of like a fingering weight base. but I dyed that way back when I was still making yarn, so I do not dye yarn anymore, but yeah, so I have a full sweater quantity of that, and I think we've decided that that is going to be the Traveler's Cardigan by Ozetta or Haley Smedley, and that will be the next project that I make. As far as upcoming projects though, I do not really plan on casting that on just yet because I would like to pick up and finish my Telesto, which is a pullover pattern by Audrey Borrego. I did not show it this week because I did not actually work on it over the past 2 weeks. I did a couple things with it, including I probably knit like 3 rounds of the body, and then I put it on silicone cabling to block it. So I blocked it, and I have not yet tried it on again and put it back on my needles. So I got really all in on making the little baby knits, and that was a little bit more time sensitive because I want to be able to send them while my niece can still wear them, hopefully. And so it was just not a priority to work on those during the last 2 weeks. So I'm hoping that over the next 2 weeks that I work on and finish the Gushy Garter hat, and then I will have just the one design project that I'm working on, and hopefully that will free up more time to work on Telesto again. I do have another design project that is different than the one I'm currently working on that I also hope to start soon. I'm not sure if I will start it in the next couple weeks, but hopefully. Let's go ahead and move on to acquisitions before we get into those announcements. So I think at the end of last episode, I talked about making a little trip to a special yarn shop and buying some yarn. And then on Instagram, I gave you all a sneak peek of what that was. And I maybe made it obvious by showing you my Spincycle yarns Plump. I went to Spincycle Supply Co., which is based in Bellingham, Washington, and it's just a little over an hour from my house, which I'm extremely grateful. I know a lot of people wish they could go to Spincycle Supply Co. because this yarn brand has a huge following. So they have a little brick and mortar actual store where they carry their yarn lines and a couple of other yarn lines that really go well with their yarns. One of the items that I had picked up was 2 skeins of Plump in the Vibe Check colorway. What I went there for was both that, because I knew I wanted to make the Gushy Garter hat, and some yarn for a project that is a personal design. So let me show you what I had picked up for that. So this specific pattern, I don't want to give too many details right away, but it is a small, like 2-ish skein accessory pattern. Honestly, it's less than 1 full skein, but because I want to use 2 different colors, it becomes 2 skeins. That's really all there is. You could probably make the design twice for 2 of the finished thing out of the amount of yarn that comes in the 2 skeins. So I hope that makes sense. So this is one of the things that I picked up there, or one of the sets that I picked up there, and I actually picked up 2 sets for making this design. One that is like what I envision as the like main sample of the design, and one that kind of deviates from that but will be really cool as well. So the other thing that is really nice about being able to go to Spincycle Supply Co. is if you see a colorway, you can then pick the exact variation that you want, because their yarns are kind of a color shifting yarn. And so I had seen this color on their website, but only one of the displayed skeins in the photo actually matched what I was envisioning, and I did not want to risk my vision of the project being down to the will of the person who was picking skeins to send to fulfill orders. So being able to choose the exact color shift, colorway, whatever, was really important to me. So this is called East of the Sun in the Dyed in the Wool colorway. It is a sport weight yarn. It comes in 200 yard skeins. And then for the coordinating skein to go with this color, I chose the Spinster's Daughter in the colorway Evergreen. So the Spinster's Daughter is a collection of 2 different yarn bases that Spincycle yarns. They spin it as an undyed wool into the finished yarn, and then the Farmer's Daughter Fibers, a different dyer in Montana, then takes that custom spun yarn and dyes it. Whereas Spincycle yarns, they dye it before the yarn is spun. This is dyed after the yarn is spun. But it's the same base, essentially. For all intents and purposes, it's the same base. And so this one comes as 300 yards per skein, but this is the sport weight. They also make a second Spinster's Daughter version, which is a worsted weight that matches the worsted weight Dream State, I think, is essentially the sister base that is worsted weight. So all of that to say, I got the color Evergreen from Spinster's Daughter and East of the Sun in Dyed in the Wool. And so those will go together as a design project that I am working on. I think they coordinate extremely lovely. I'm very excited. This is exactly the colors that I had envisioned. I have been envisioning this design so specifically in my head that I searched through lots of different dyers and yarn brands before finding this and deciding that is exactly, like especially this skein, that is exactly what my brain envisions this design to be made with. And very rarely does that happen for me with a design that like I kind of imagine it in my head and it looks such a specific way that I have to dig so deep through all of these other, like all of these brands to find the exact color that makes my brain go, that's the one, that's the puzzle piece that fits into this design. And so when I saw this, that's why I was so grateful and so happy that I would be able to go and pick out the exact skein. And when I was digging through these skeins on the shelf and pulled out this one and I went, that's it, that's the one, that's exactly right. And then this one was a kind of a secondary, like, okay, now let me go over to this table and, find the exact thing that coordinated correctly with this. So all of that to say, that is the main colorway set for the main sample for this design. And then while I was there, I also, just a couple of shelves over from this, I found this, and this yarn is called, or this colorway is called Side Quest. And it is this beautiful combination of like purples and then bright chartreuse and orange and pink and like aqua blue. But the main color here is purple. And I thought this was so pretty, and I thought, you know what? This would make a really beautiful like alternate colorway sample for the same design. And so I went searching because the table that I had found this on only had like 3 or 4 colors on it, and none of them really went the way that I wanted this one to go. And so I went searching for the sport weight Spinster's Daughter section to see if I could find a color that I felt coordinated really well with this. And this color stood out to me so fast. And I think that they go together so well. Now this is more of a contrast pair than the other. These are definitely a coordinating pair where, like the oranges and greens of this really kind of blend nicely with the green of the evergreen. Whereas this pair, this kind of chartreuse, very greenish neon yellow, it's only really picked up a little bit in the colors of, I don't even know if the colors are showing correctly on my camera here, but it's only very slightly in there. But I just thought that this contrast also worked so extremely beautifully together. And so that will be a sort of alternate sample of the same design. So this colorway, the purple one, is called Side Quest, and this chartreusey color is called Daddy State of Mind. So all in all, I got the yarn to not only make my kind of dream sample version of this design, but also a secondary version of this design, and the lovely yarn for the Gushy Garter hat. And that's my acquisitions. So I did get one more thing at checkout there that I have not put this on my car yet. I saw this cute bumper sticker by Shelly Can at the checkout at the store, and it says "Will break for sheep," and it's got this beautiful simple illustration of a sheep and some flowers, and I just think that'll look cute on my car. So I picked that up as well while I was there. I will give a spoiler for next time as well. I have some small amounts of yarn that I have ordered that haven't shown up yet, and those I will just talk to you next time. It includes some yarn that was kind of a special limited edition yarn, as well as an extra skein for something else that I already have in my stash, so that I have enough to make a specific project. And that's all I'm going to tell you. It should be here by the next time I talk to you in 2 weeks. So let's quickly talk announcements. And so for this week, the announcements really just include information about the hat make-along. And I just want to be able to make sure that I can clarify some things. I actually recorded a hat make-along, everything you need to know video last week that was going to go up last week. And then I didn't like it, so I deleted the file. And then I recorded it again the next day. And I didn't like it and deleted the file and decided to not have a special video for that, at least for now. So in that time, though, I was able to really get specific details kind of hammered out for how this make-along is going to work. So I'm going to run through the details extremely quickly, I hope. I don't have prizes yet for all of these, but there will be prizes, including some knitting needles, some crochet hooks, some yarn, and some other notions. And that's all I can tell you right now about the prizes. The rules are as follows. You can make a hat, either crocheted or knit, anytime from November 1st to January 31st. You can make many and multiple hats from November 1st to January 31st. So it's a 3-month make-along. You can include up to one work in progress from before November 1st. So if you cast something on in September, for instance, you can include that and submit that for prizes for the make-along, but only one. So if you have like 15 hats that you started but never finished in July, you can pick one of those. The rest, either don't finish them, which is absurd, or just only include one of them when you submit for prizes for our hat make-along. I hope that's fair for everyone. The next rule is that hats need to be sized to fit a person. No doll hats, essentially. So like a little baby hat, that's okay. A full-size adult hat, that's okay. A hat to fit your labubu, no. Sorry. So hopefully that covers that. You don't have to make the hats for a specific purpose. I think that I talked about this last podcast, but I know I definitely talked about it in those videos that will never be seen. you can make these for charity, you can make them for gifts, you can make them for yourself, you can make any number of hats, you can make 1, you can make 50. It's okay. Whatever you decide to do with them is none of my business. I personally will be making some for gifts, probably at least 1 for myself, and any additional, or I think I will intentionally try to make additional ones, that I will be donating to Knit the Rainbow, which is an organization in New York City which gathers hand knit or crocheted goods to hand out to LGBTQIA+ teens, just to help keep them warm in the very cold winters, especially because there is a large cross-section of LGBTQIA+ youth and underhoused or unhoused teens. So we want to make sure these kids are staying warm and healthy and happy, or as much as they can be. So they accept any sort of, knit mittens, hats, scarves, shawls, sweaters, socks, etc. So I plan to make a few hats for gifts, 1 for myself and a couple to send over to Knit the Rainbow. But you can do whatever you want with them. It's none of my business. And one more thing, I think, for the hat make-along is that I'm hoping to do prize categories. So there will be quite a few prizes just given out as participations. So if you submit a hat, it counts as an entry, period. The submission for prizes, I think that there will be a Google form near the end of January that I will go ahead and have people use. But also, I will have, by the time this video goes up, there will be a thread already opened in the Shipwrecked Sheep group on Ravelry where you can enter your projects over there as well. The specific reason why I want to do a Google form to submit for prizes is because I want to do 2 special prizes, or 2 special prizes, and 1 will be for the most hats knit or crocheted or both by the same person, so that person will receive a special prize. And I'm thinking of, but I'm not totally sure, so you can't hold me to this, of also doing a second special prize for the person who uses up the most yardage of yarn. Yeah, so that's just stuff to think about as you're joining the make-along. Please tag me in your hat make-along posts on Instagram. I'm Shipwrecked Sheep on Instagram, so just tag me. There's no hashtag because hashtags on Instagram don't really work anymore, not the way they used to. But please just tag me so that I can see what you're working on and I can share what you're working on, and yeah, we can kind of make it a whole community thing. Activities for this make-along will kind of evolve as it goes. I might, suggest people share on their stories or post pictures of all of their hats together or something like that. But at this time, you can enter each hat individually by posting a picture of it in the Ravelry group or submitting the Google form. Another announcement that I want to talk about is I am currently having a de-stash sale, so like a personal yarn stash, de-stash sale on my website. You can find that. It's just shipwreckedsheep.com. And that is my web shop where I do also sell knitting needles and yarn and things like that. But there is a specific de-stash happening right now where I am selling a bunch of my yarn at super reduced prices from what it was retail, because I just have a lot of yarn. All of the yarn is stored in plastic bags inside plastic totes. There's no animal interaction with any of that, no smoking, etc. So it's great quality yarn that I just know I will never ever get to. And either while you're there, or if that doesn't interest you, go check out the 20% off sale that I'm also hosting on Shipwrecked Sheep web shop for Yarn Love yarns. I have a couple of different colorways on this gorgeous Juliet sock base that are still in stock, and those are 20% off while supplies last. So The second special event that is happening before the next time I record is on November 20th is Transgender Day of Remembrance. This is an annual event, annual observation to honor the memory of trans people whose lives were taken as acts of anti-trans violence. So on November 20th every year, we have a special Remembrance Day. The origin of this day was specifically the founder was honoring the memory of a specific trans person who lost their life to anti-trans violence. I don't remember that person's name because I suck. But the founder, Gwendolyn Ann Smith, I did pull a quote from the glad.org website by this person, and I wanted to read it really quickly for you all. I will include the link to the GLAD website's page for Transgender Day of Remembrance in the description box below so that you all can read it and kind of find a way to take a moment on the 20th to remember all trans people who have lost their lives to anti-trans violence. So Gwendolyn Ann Smith said, Transgender Day of Remembrance seeks to highlight the losses we face due to anti-transgender bigotry and violence. I am no stranger to the need to fight for our rights, and the right to simply exist is first and foremost. With so many seeking to erase transgender people, sometimes in the most brutal ways possible, it is vitally important that those we lose are remembered and that we continue to fight for justice. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that that was at the top of everyone's minds as we go in to the next week. Yeah, as we go into the next week, and just take a few moments on that day. And when I don't know what the original intent was in terms of including those lost to self-harm due to anti-trans bigotry, but in my mind, not only do we include the very physical violence of bigoted people towards trans people that results in the loss of lives, but I believe we should also be including the additional acts of violence, including bullying and lawmaking and other acts of erasure that result in the self-harm losses of life of transgender people. So both of those things I consider to be violence, and although one of them is a very direct and physical type of violence, and the other is a less maybe direct, but still violence, all the same. Yeah, so take a little bit of time this coming week on the 20th of November, and let's go ahead and observe this important day. And now I will just talk about a couple of little life updates, nothing really super important. I personally am very excited to now be back on a little bit more of a regular work schedule. I had picked up an extra Saturday shift for a coworker. I normally work every other Saturday, and I usually have the Saturday after I film, so the day that this comes up, I usually have that day off of work. And on my Saturdays off, I go to the local sit and stitch knit group at the local bookstore and do that on Saturday mornings, and I was not able to. So it's now been 3 weeks since the last time I've been able to go. I only went twice before that. I had just joined this group, essentially. So I am looking forward to going back. I'm not sure that I've really made friends out of this group yet, but I think building friendships as an adult takes a lot of time. And so when you're only meeting with a group for a couple of hours every other week, the group meets every week. Actually, they meet twice a week, but I only go every other week. So my schedule is now back to normal. I do have this Saturday off, and I will get to go meet up. And I am a little bit emotionally exhausted from working 3 Saturdays in a row, but I'm glad to be able to have a Saturday off. I'm glad to have today off. Today is Thursday. I also have Thursdays off. Our kind of blackout dates for the holidays are about to be in effect, and the business that I work at is closed on Thanksgiving, so I don't have to work that. I wouldn't have to work that day anyways because it's a Thursday. But generally speaking, I am. It makes me a little bit anxious during times where it's not really allowed to take time off, even though I don't think it actually affects my schedule very much. I will say that we've been a little bit busier than we were all summer long, and the busier the shop is, the more hours I get, because I have a specific clock in time, and then when I'm done with work, I leave for the day. If there's a really small workload and I know the day before, I actually end up going in late and then clocking out at a relatively normal time. But when we have full workloads and the shop is busier, then I clock in right at the regular time in the morning, and then I have a full work day. And because I'm paid hourly, I actually don't mind so much. I appreciate the days that I get off early because I have more time to myself, and I love that. But I also appreciate the days where I get to work a full shift because I know that my paycheck will be higher, and because I'm paid state minimum wage here is actually okay. But because I'm paid minimum wage, I appreciate every extra dollar that gets to go into my paycheck when I work a full day. Tomorrow I do have to go in late because I have a plastic healing abutment on an implant for a tooth implant that I had done much earlier this year. And because I can't get the final crown on it until January due to insurance purposes and dental plans and the way they work, I have been just having the plastic healing abutment just on it. And over the summer, it actually loosened and came off, and they had to reinstall it, which was not super comfy. And so I noticed that it was starting to get loose last night. I called them this morning, and they'll fit me in tomorrow morning just to tighten that down and get that to stay on for the next 2 months. I'm very excited. I already have a implant with its permanent crown on this side, and then having the pair matching one on this side be finished. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's everything. I'm now just blathering on for absolutely no reason. That is everything for you all. Everything I talked about that is of even minor importance will be linked or summarized in the description box below. I hope you all a lovely next couple of weeks, and I will see you again right after Thanksgiving. The next day I record will be on Thanksgiving. So I'll be posting that on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, which is Small Business Saturday. But that's not important for another couple of weeks anyways. So I will see you again after Thanksgiving. If you celebrate Thanksgiving in any way, I hope that it's a nice one for you. But yeah, I will see you all in 2 weeks. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel so that you don't miss an upload. And I am thinking very much about having a special bonus video next week on the off week. So I'm not totally sure. I have 2 ideas in mind. I don't know which one it will be if I do get it uploaded, so I'm not going to make a promise. It won't be a podcast video. But yeah, make sure you are subscribed so that you don't miss any updates, and like this video if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment below about what your plans are for the next couple of weeks, what you're working on, what you're making. Are you going to join our hat make along? All of the above. Anyways, take care. I'll see you next time. Bye.